Hello and welcome to this student Q&A for students at the University of Wolverhampton. My name's Vicky Warren, I'm from the communications team at the university, and I'm joined by Professor Julia Clarke, who's the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of the university, and Ayo Falana, who's the President of the Students' Union. We've been asking for questions from our students, and I'm going to put those questions to Julia and Ayo now. So welcome both of you.
Thank you. Hello.
The first question is for you, Julia. Hi, when is resit period for this academic year? Can it be brought forward rather than the usual July, August? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for the question. And can I just start by saying thank you to everybody who sent in questions. I realise that this is a very anxious time for everybody as we're in another national lockdown. We're trying to get information to you as quickly as we can. Obviously, if you have questions, we're always happy to try to respond to them. So with regard to this specific question, when's the resit period for this academic year? Well, if you're an undergraduate, you've got resits, if you need them, of your semester one modules in the week commencing the 29th of March. And for semester two modules, the resit period there commences in the 19th of July. It's not possible for us to bring that July resit period forward at all because of the need for students to be able to prepare where they need to for assessments during that period. But what we have done is we've revised the resit approach. So if your programme permits it, and this does depend on the nature of the assessment and any regulatory body requirements, we're saying that rather than wait until the resit period, you could resubmit during term time if you've failed a module. So you can resubmit the same piece of work to a past standard during the teaching period rather than waiting for the next assessment period. So hopefully that will help some students to clear resits before the next actual resit period. So if you've got any queries on that with regard to your own particular circumstances, please do talk to your tutors to see if that is possible on your programme.
Thank you, Julia. The next question is for Ayo. Do you think a lack of diversity in the student officers makes it difficult for the wider student body to engage with the student union?
Thank you very much, Vicky. I think diversity plays a very good role, a very great role in our leadership skills at the university and at the student union. I think the student body doesn't really have much of a diversity, to be honest. I think we're quite diverse in the way we represent our students in terms of males and females. We're diverse in terms of our demographic. I think we are quite diverse. If you look at the sabbatical officers, as for example, there is 4 being Black sabbatical officers, and there are females, and there are 2 females, and there are 2 males. But if you go down to our school rep, which is part of which are part of student officers because they represent students and they are paid, but they don't work full time. There's quite a lot of white students in our school rep system compared to the sabbatical officer. So I think there's kind of a mixed bag. Could we do better? Yes, we could do better. And that is why we are kind of like communicating our election to a wider group, to have multiple people, to have different people from different backgrounds, trying to get them engaged with the student union, for them to be able to contest, because if they don't know about the student union election, they cannot become officers. So that's why we're communicating that with the university, with our communication teams as well, to get as many students as we can, mature students in our board of trustees. We have mature students in our board of trustees, and we have about 3 students in our board of trustees. In our school and our program rep as well, which is quite not really a representative of the student officers, but just like a cost rep. We have quite diversity on there, but on our board of trustees, on our school rep system, and the sabbatical officers as well, I think there's a lot of diversity within the student union. But could we do better? Yes, wish we're going to do better to see more people from different background, more mature students, more BAME students, more white students, just everybody interwoven. So thank you.
Thanks, Ayo. The next question is for Julia. Are students who have paid for accommodation for the current term going to see their money back due to living on campus not being necessary until face-to-face teaching resumes?
So if students are living in university accommodation and aren't able to be there because of the lockdown, we have cancelled their fees for the duration of the lockdown. So for however long that goes on, for however long we're not able to offer all teaching on campus. So we have actually already cancelled fees for students in university accommodation. For those students who are living in university accommodation at present, we have provided them with a 25% discount. We continue to encourage private providers to look at what they can do in terms of reducing accommodation fees during the pandemic. And the government has announced today, actually, some funding of £6 million for England, which will be used and spent via universities to support students experiencing hardship during the pandemic. And that's on top of the monies that the university has already put into hardship funding to support students who are suffering during the pandemic.
Thank you, Julia. And Ayo, is there anything you want to add on accommodation?
Thank you, Vicky. I think Julia said most things, but to reiterate on Julia's point, I think the university has been proactive in terms of accommodation, because we have some of our students who are abroad funding into the student union, talking about university charging them. But this was raised and university come in rescue of that and decline payment of accommodation fee for the period they are not in the country due to lockdown, or for those that are in the country but they are not in the accommodation because they are locked down in one council or one borough or the other, so they're not going to be charged for that. And we really appreciate that. But also for students that are currently living in the accommodation as well, there was a 30% discount or 20% discount I can get on top of my head. But the only issue with accommodation that is very, very, very disturbing is for our student living in private accommodation, which is beyond what we could do. But we're currently liaising with private landlords that we have around us, the ones that we could get in touch with, writing letters to local authorities to see how they could help us, and liaise with landlords to be able to reduce rent for our students, or to not even take rent at all, because if students are not in their house and their properties in their house, which is not the university accommodation, it might have some financial burden on them. So which is what we're trying to do. That is the main problem here for students living in off-campus accommodation. So thank you.
Thanks, Ayo. Next question is for Julia. Hi, I would like to query something. I am a second year nurse. Myself and other members of my 219 cohort receive the update emails on the government announcements. Within the email, it states, currently only those on critical worker courses, such as medical, clinical and healthcare subjects, are permitted to receive face-to-face teaching. As nursing students, surely this includes us, as we are in a medical, clinical and healthcare profession setting. Why has our face-to-face teaching been stopped, and all practical sessions in the skills lab that would contribute massively to our development in our second year studies?
So thank you for the question, and you're absolutely right that nursing is counted as a critical worker course. And I would like to say thank you to both our student nurses and many of our colleagues in nursing who have contributed to the national emergency. So during the present lockdown, we are continuing face-to-face teaching for those elements of your programme that cannot be delivered online, such as practical sessions in the skills labs. But remember that we do need to deliver those under strict COVID secure conditions. And so that has limited the numbers that we can have in labs at any one time. So, and also given the increasing national and local COVID infection rates since Christmas, the huge pressure on the NHS services locally, we have had to reduce the number of teaching sessions in the skills labs just to accommodate the mandatory training or essential skills that are needed for placement, because it is really important that we keep students going out onto placement. So the timetables were switched around so that students were given their theory sessions now, and their skills sessions have been rescheduled for later in the semester. So you won't miss out on anything that was planned in any of the modules, but we had to take that decision because we had to work with our practice partners as a socially responsible measure in order to help prevent the transmission of COVID between students, even though the risk was low, which would put additional pressure on local NHS services. Infection rates are now reducing, although we have had news about a particular strain yesterday in Walsall. Many of our students have now been vaccinated, which is great news. So hopefully we will start to see a levelling out, which will be positive, and then we will be able to readjust use of the skills labs to accommodate what we need to do to support the NHS.
Thank you, Julia. Next question is for you again, Julia. For level 5 students, most of our degree would have been taught online. How will this impact what honours we graduate with? And will it be calculated the same as previous years or given some leniency?
Okay, thank you for the question. And I recognise that students who are in their second year at the moment, you have had a really tough time because you were here at the time of the first close down, and this year has been significantly impacted by the pandemic. Prior to Christmas, we were working with a blended model, trying to ensure that all students who wanted access to on-campus teaching had that, but because we need to comply with the national restrictions since Christmas, that has not been possible. So lecturers and tutors have worked really hard to ensure that online teaching has been on a high standard, and have reviewed the nature of assessment so that these continue to be a fair test of knowledge and skills that you can reasonably acquire through the ways in which we've been forced to adjust our teaching this year. We're also continuing this year with the adjustment to classification that was introduced last year, which reduced the number of credits over which classification is calculated. This was introduced last year because of the emergency transition to online assessment in semester 2. We'll closely review module level outcomes against previous years to check whether the proportion of passes and good marks remain in line with those achieved pre-pandemic, and that will inform decisions about the need to make any further adjustments for classifications from 21-22 onwards. In addition, we have introduced a trust basis model for extension requests and assessment deferrals in recognition of the significant impact that conditions this year has had on students. That is with the exception of mandatory practice assessments for the professional programmes, because there the assessment deferrals have to be considered on an individual basis. So we absolutely recognise the impact that the model of teaching has had on students this year. We made adjustment to classification last year in recognition of that, and we will be doing the same again this year.
Thank you, Julia. Next question is again for you, Julia. I am an exchange student and I would like all my courses online until the end of the year, which would be June for me. Would it be possible?
Hi, that's not a problem at all, as long as your course is one which does not have practical elements which would necessitate them being taught on campus. So what I would do is encourage you to check with faculty services who would be able to confirm, and also to consult with our UKVI team, because they will need to ensure that there's no visa implications that would apply to you.
Thank you, Julia. Next question is, as a final year special educational needs, disability and inclusion studies and education studies student, how will we be awarded our classification this year, as final year students last year had a different way of being awarded. I feel that I have missed out on so much teaching, having not been into university since March 2020.
So again, absolutely, I recognise for yourself as a final year student, somebody who was doing their second year last year, your learning has been significantly disrupted since March of last year. So as I mentioned before, we made an adjustment to the classification last year, whereby we calculated students' classification, so whether they got a 2-1 or a first or a 2-2 by reference to fewer credits. So we looked at their best credits across a smaller number, so 120 rather than 180 for undergraduate students. And we will do exactly the same for the classification of students who are graduating this year.
Thank you, Julia. Next question is, why are we paying full fees to university if classes are online?
Okay, so classes are online because we have to follow national guidelines, and that means most of our classes have to be online during the current lockdown, apart from some of those 4 critical worker courses. I really do appreciate that there's much that students are missing about the on-campus experience. What we've had to focus on is ensuring that the quality of the online teaching is as good as it can be, and that you are getting the learning that you need, the teaching that you need for enable you to be sure of meeting the learning outcomes for your programme and being able to demonstrate those, so that we ensure that the robust nature of our qualifications is maintained, because we need to maintain the value of your qualifications. What I would say is that the cost base to the university has not reduced. So there isn't money that we can pass back to students. And indeed, if you're a student who is has a loan for your fee, so if you're a UK undergraduate student or a UK postgraduate student, even if fees were reduced, it wouldn't mean that money would be paid back to you. It would just mean that there would be a reduction in the debt, which you may ultimately pay or not pay at some point in the future. So as I said, everything has to be online at the moment. We know that the government has said that on-campus teaching will not resume before 8th of March at the earliest. We'll keep you informed as soon as we know anything about return dates. And once we have those, we will bring back those practical elements as soon and as quickly as we can do so.
Thank you, Julia. Ayo, is there anything you want to add in there?
Thank you, Vicky. Well, I'd just like to add to this. I know this is a very hard time for our students. I can oversay that, but all I have to say is all the support they get from the student union when they were on campus, we still have all the support at the student union. In fact, we have more support now at the student union to support them, especially in the advice session, and to be able to get our advisor, student can go to www.wolfsunion.org/advice. Our advisors' emails are there, their phone numbers are there. You can always speak to them at the normal time. We always speak to them when we open face-to-face 9 to 5. They're always there to speak to you, to help you on your academic issues and any area you have any complaint with your academic and well-being and finance. We're always there for you, and we're independent of the university, and our services is running. All I just have to say to you is, I don't know how to say, but we just have to live this time together and try our best to make our lives better together. But in terms of support for students, 100%, nothing has changed in terms of the support we give to students. The only thing that's changed is the face-to-face, which is disheartening to me, even me saying it to you. But we always make sure the support is always there for you.
Thank you, Ayo. Next question is, how long will the online learning carry on for? It is so difficult for me.
Thank you. So we really do appreciate how difficult it is for many students. I think there's a couple of things that we can perhaps point out is, as Ayo has talked about, there is a lot of support available through the Students' Union. There is also a lot of support through the university as well. So all the support that was available to students through student services and other support workers through the library, most of that has been transferred online, but that support is still there for you. So if you are finding things difficult, please do reach out to us. If you, we recognise that many students find not just being online, but sometimes working from home can be very difficult if you don't have space, if there's too much going on at home, if it's just not good for your mental health being at home all the time. We are permitted under the existing restrictions to keep the libraries open as places of individual study and for students who need to access library resources. So you can come onto campus for that, but only if it's absolutely essential. Remember, the government guidance is that we should all only leave home if it's absolutely essential. But if you are in that position, we do have the libraries open daily, except for Sundays at Walsall and City Campus. In terms of how long online learning will carry on for, the government has told us that it will not resume before the 8th of March at the earliest. So as soon as we hear anything further, we will of course let you know.
Thank you, Julia. Next question is, when is the January batch or cohort of postgraduate students resuming?
Thanks. So if you're starting your postgraduate studies from new, then our welcome week is the week commencing the 15th of February. And if you're coming back to your second semester of postgraduate studies, teaching starts on the 22nd of February. It will be remote or online learning to start off with, because of the government restrictions and regarding on-campus teaching.
Thank you, Julia. And last question is, can you tell me why complaints are taking longer than the policy states to investigate?
Thanks. Okay, so the complaints policy does say that we should manage complaints within 28 working days. Sometimes where a complaint is particularly complex, it can take longer, and in those cases we do keep the student informed of any delay. Where delays occur, they should usually only be a few days, but any student who is concerned about the delay in receiving an outcome should contact the Conduct and Appeals Unit for an update.
Thank you. That's all the questions that we've had submitted. I wonder if Julia and Ayo, you'd like to say a final message to our students. So Julia, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for the questions that you've posed today. I think they reflect how difficult this situation is for our students. Obviously, some of the people asking questions had to go through this last year as well. Some of you started university in September, and that was a very difficult circumstance in which to start university. And even though we had some on-campus teaching in that first semester, the restrictions on the social side of university made it very difficult for you to join, to make friends, to meet people, for all the other things that were usually ongoing in university. I think we have to all remember that there is hope. The vaccine programme is being rolled out currently to the deadlines. So, although it's going to take some time for us to get back to normal as a country, we do have hope now, and we need to cling to that. But I recognise that for many of us, this is a very isolating, a very, very difficult time. So I would just please ask you to reach out for help to either us or to the Students' Union if you need to. There's always someone here who will listen.
Thank you, Julia. Ayo, would you like to say a final message to the students?
Thank you, Vicky. I just want to say to all the students, first of all, I want to say a very massive thank you to them for sending through their questions to them. And I want to reassure them that we're doing all we can at the Student Union. We're doing all our best to ensure we're giving our students the relevant support they need in their studies and in their personal well-being. And in a time like this, we're trying our best, we're working hard to ensure we meet the needs of students and listen to them. And all I can just say to you, because I know there is more or less you can say to a student that study as causing COVID or that's never even been to the university and trying to figure out ways to get their feet or to get their timetable, or they're just struggling with one thing or the other. I want you to know that we're here for you. The university is always here for you. The SU, the Student Union, is always here for you. You go to our website, you see me on the website, you see my email on the website. You can always beckon on me and message me and ring me. I always reply to your email. I can give you that. My fellow sabbatical officers will always reply to your email, and we're always gonna help you no matter what. Just send us that email through. Go to our website, www.wolfsunion.org, and you're going to see all the sabbatical officers there. There are 4 sabbatical officers there, and we have amazing team. We have amazing staff that work for us beneath the scene as well, and they're very great, and we're always going to support you and work for you. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Ayo. That concludes all the questions that we've had submitted. So thank you to all the students that sent in your questions for this Q&A session. Thank you to Julia and to Ayo for taking part. Thank you and stay safe.